The Warlord's Ultimatum. The artifact pulsed in Lyra's hands like a living heart, its golden light illuminating the darkened forest as the group emerged from the caves. The air outside was unnaturally still, the usual rustling of leaves and hum of creatures absent. It felt as though the entire planet was holding its breath. Daniel glanced at the sky. The swirling clouds above had turned an ominous shade of black, streaked with veins of crimson lightning. "This can't be good," he muttered, tightening his grip on the energy blade. Lyra stood at the edge of the clearing, her glowing patterns flickering erratically. She held the artifact aloft, and its light intensified, cutting through the oppressive darkness. "The Shadow Warden knows we have it," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "and it is not pleased." Before Daniel could respond, the ground trembled violently, knocking everyone to their knees. The deep, resonant voice boomed across the landscape, chilling in its clarity. "So, you seek to challenge me." The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, surrounding them. "You think a relic of the past can undo my dominion?" The artifact's glow dimmed momentarily, as if the voice itself was draining its energy. Lyra clutched it tightly, her expression one of defiance. "Your reign ends here, Shadow Warden," she shouted into the void. The voice chuckled darkly, the sound reverberating through the forest. "Foolish zealot, you have only hastened your demise." From the swirling clouds above, a massive figure began to descend. It was shrouded in shadows, its form indistinct and shifting, but its glowing red eyes burned with unmistakable malice. The Shadow Warden had arrived. Daniel's breath caught as he took in the being's size. It towered over the tallest trees, its smoky form solidifying into jagged armor that pulsed with dark energy. The alien runes carved into its chest glowed brighter than ever, radiating raw power. The Warden raised an immense, clawed hand, and the sky seemed to crack open. A torrent of dark energy rained down, striking the ground around them. Trees disintegrated, and the earth itself split apart, revealing rivers of molten red light beneath. Daniel jumped to his feet, pulling Lyra back as a blast of energy struck dangerously close. "What's the plan, Lyra?" he yelled over the chaos. "Because if you've got some secret move, now's the time." Lyra's eyes met his, steady despite the fear etched on her face. "The artifact can weaken it," she said, "but only if it's fully activated. I need time to synchronize with it." Daniel groaned. "Time? That thing doesn't exactly look patient." The Shadow Warden raised its other hand, and from the fissures in the ground emerged more shadowy guardians, larger and more menacing than the ones in the cave. Their forms rippled with the same crimson light that coursed through the Warden, and they moved with unnatural speed, closing in on the group. "Buy me that time," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. She knelt in the clearing, placing the artifact on the ground. Its glow intensified as she began chanting in her melodic language, her glowing patterns shifting into complex, swirling designs. Daniel turned to the Zephyrian scouts, who were frozen in fear. "You heard her," he barked. "Form a perimeter. Don't let those things near her." The scouts hesitated but eventually nodded, drawing their crystal blades and forming a defensive circle around Lyra. Daniel took a deep breath and activated his energy blade. Its hum a small but comforting sound in the midst of the chaos. The first guardian lunged at him, its claws tearing through the air. Daniel sidestepped and slashed with his blade, the energy cutting through the creature's form. It dissolved into smoke, but before he could catch his breath, another attacked. "Relentless, aren't you?" he muttered, dodging and striking again. The battle raged on, the guardians attacking in waves. Daniel fought with everything he had, his movements fueled by sheer determination. But for every guardian he destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The Zephyrian scouts were faltering, their glowing forms dimming under the relentless assault. Above them, the Shadow Warden watched, its red eyes unblinking. "You cannot win," it intoned, its voice dripping with contempt. "Surrender, and I may grant you a swift end." Daniel gritted his teeth, wiping sweat and dirt from his face. "Yeah, not really my style," he muttered, charging at another guardian. His blade struck true, and the creature disintegrated, but the strain was beginning to show. His arms felt heavy, and his breath came in ragged gasps. Behind him, the artifact's light grew brighter, casting long, flickering shadows across the battlefield. Lyra's chant grew louder, her voice unwavering despite the chaos around her. The patterns on her skin pulsed in perfect harmony with the artifact, creating an intricate, mesmerizing display. The Shadow Warden's eyes narrowed. "Enough of this," it snarled. It raised its massive hand, dark energy coalescing into a sphere of crackling power. "I will end this farce myself." Daniel's eyes widened as the Warden prepared to unleash the energy. He turned to Lyra, panic in his voice. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster." Lyra's chanting reached a crescendo, and the artifact's light exploded outward in a blinding flash. The wave of energy struck the Shadow Warden mid-attack, forcing it to stagger back. The Guardians dissolved instantly, their connection to the Warden severed. The massive being let out a roar of pain and fury, its form flickering as if destabilized. "You dare defy me!" it bellowed, its voice shaking the very ground. Lyra stood, the artifact now floating above her outstretched hands. Her glowing patterns were nearly blinding, her voice ringing with authority. "Your time is over, Shadow Warden. Return to the void from which you came." The Warden recoiled, its form growing more unstable by the second. But it wasn't done yet. As Daniel watched the battle unfold, he realized the Warden was preparing one final devastating strike. If it succeeded, there would be nothing left of the village, or anyone in it. "Lyra," he said, his voice low and urgent, "we need to finish this. Now." A hero's legacy. The Shadow Warden loomed above them, its form flickering between solidity and shadow, like a storm barely contained. The crimson lightning that once coursed through its body now sputtered erratically, a sign that Lyra's artifact was weakening its hold. But Daniel could see the Warden's final attack building, a swirling mass of dark energy growing in its massive claw. "If it launches that thing, we're done," Daniel muttered, sweat dripping down his face. He glanced at Lyra, who stood with the artifact glowing brighter than ever in her hands. Her patterns shimmered like a living constellation, but her expression showed the strain she was under. "Lyra," he shouted over the cacophony of the storm. "Can you stop it?" She didn't look at him, her focus entirely on the artifact. "I can weaken it further," she said, her voice tight with effort. "But to destroy it completely, I need a direct connection to its core." Daniel frowned. "The core? You mean inside that thing?" Lyra nodded, her eyes finally meeting his. "The artifact must be delivered into the Warden's heart, but the journey is impossible. The energy surrounding it will consume anyone who tries." Daniel looked up at the Shadow Warden. Its chest pulsed with a crimson light, the runes glowing like molten lava. The path was clear, but it was also suicidal. The energy swirling around its body was enough to vaporize anything that got too close. "Impossible," Daniel repeated, a hint of a grin forming on his face. "I've heard that word before." Lyra's glowing eyes widened. "No, Daniel. You'll die." "I'll die if I don't," he said, gripping his energy blade tightly. "And so will everyone else. I didn't crash here just to watch you all get wiped out." Before Lyra could protest, Daniel stepped forward, the wind from the Warden's energy storm whipping around him. He turned back to her, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Trust me. Keep it distracted. I'll get it done." Lyra hesitated for a moment, then extended the artifact toward him. As he took it, a surge of warmth flowed through his body, as if the artifact itself recognized his resolve. "May the light guide you," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel gave her a small nod, then turned to face the towering monstrosity. The Warden's glowing red eyes locked onto him, its voice a booming growl. "Foolish human, you think you can defy a god?" Daniel smirked. "You're no god. You're just scared." With that, he sprinted toward the Shadow Warden, the artifact glowing brighter with each step. The ground beneath him cracked and splintered as waves of energy lashed out. But he kept moving, his focus unshakable. The Warden roared, swinging its massive claw toward him. Daniel ducked and rolled, the ground where he had been standing exploding into shards of rock and dirt. The artifact pulsed in his hands, guiding him as if it were alive. As he closed the distance, the heat from the Warden's energy field became unbearable. His skin prickled, and his breathing grew labored. But he pressed on. He could see the runes on its chest clearly now, their patterns twisting and pulsing like a living labyrinth. Climbing the beast wasn't going to be easy, but Daniel didn't hesitate. He leaped onto one of its massive legs, using his energy blade to anchor himself. The Warden thrashed, trying to shake him off. But Daniel held on, his grip unyielding. "Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth, pulling himself higher. The closer he got to the core, the more intense the energy became. His body screamed in protest, but he pushed forward, one hand gripping the artifact, the other driving the blade into the Warden's shifting form. Finally, he reached the chest. The runes burned brighter, and the artifact pulsed in response, its light resonating with the Warden's core. Daniel hesitated for only a moment, then plunged the artifact into the center of the glowing runes. The reaction was immediate. The Warden let out an earth-shattering roar, its form convulsing as waves of golden light erupted from the artifact. The crimson runes dimmed, and cracks of light spread across the Warden's body like a breaking dam. Daniel barely had time to leap clear before the Warden exploded in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave sent him tumbling to the ground, his body hitting the dirt with a painful thud. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the dark clouds above began to dissipate, revealing a sky filled with stars. Daniel groaned, rolling onto his back. Every muscle in his body ached, but he was alive. He turned his head to see Lyra and the Zephyrians rushing toward him. "You did it," Lyra said, kneeling beside him. Her glowing patterns were calm and steady now, a reflection of the restored balance. "Yeah," Daniel muttered, managing a weak smile. "Told you it wasn't impossible." Lyra laughed softly, her eyes shimmering with gratitude. "You've done more than save us. You've given us hope." As the Zephyrians cheered and the forest began to hum with life once more, Daniel let his eyes drift closed. He had come to this planet as a stranger, but now he was leaving it as a hero. Or perhaps he wasn't leaving at all. The end. First contact. Captain Daniel Cole tightened his grip on the controls of his damaged starship as it hurtled through the atmosphere of an unknown planet. Alarms blared, red lights flashing across the cockpit. The ship was losing altitude fast, and smoke filled the cabin. "Hold together, just a little longer," Daniel muttered, his hands trembling as he guided the ship toward a clearing in the dense forest below. The ship crashed with a deafening roar, skidding across the ground and coming to a halt against a rocky outcrop. Daniel coughed as he unbuckled himself from his seat. The cabin was filled with smoke and sparks. Grabbing his emergency gear and strapping his energy blade to his utility belt, he opened the hatch and stepped into the unknown. The air was fresh but strange, filled with the scents of alien vegetation. Towering trees with glowing blue leaves surrounded him, their roots twisting like giant snakes. The sky above shimmered with hues of purple and gold. Daniel took a deep breath and scanned the area, his handheld scanner beeping softly. The planet seemed habitable, but he wasn't alone. Suddenly, he heard soft whispers and rustling from the bushes. Daniel froze, his hand instinctively moving toward the energy blade at his side. From the shadows emerged a group of tall, slender beings with shimmering skin that reflected the forest's light. Their eyes were large and curious, glowing faintly in the dim light. They moved with grace, their steps silent on the forest floor. The leader of the group stepped forward. She was slightly taller than the others, with intricate patterns glowing on her skin like tattoos. Her gaze was steady, but there was no malice in her expression. Instead, she looked at Daniel with open curiosity. Daniel raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Hello, I'm Captain Daniel Cole, a traveler. My ship crashed here by accident. I come in peace." The alien leader tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing as she studied him. Then she spoke in a soft, melodic voice. "Human. Rare to see one here." Her words were surprisingly clear, though her accent was unfamiliar. Daniel blinked in surprise. "You speak my language." The alien nodded. "We learned many languages from travelers before. I am Lyra, leader of the Zephyrians. And you, human, carry strange things." Her gaze dropped to his waist, where his energy blade hung in its sheath. She pointed at it, her brow furrowed. "What's that hard thing between your legs?" Daniel's eyes widened as he realized what she meant. For a moment, he was too stunned to respond. Then he let out a nervous chuckle. "Oh, it's just a tool. A survival blade. Nothing dangerous unless I use it." Lyra stepped closer, her movements deliberate but not threatening. She examined the blade with curiosity. The other Zephyrians whispered among themselves, their glowing eyes fixed on Daniel. Lyra's hand hovered near the blade, but she didn't touch it. "You carry strange tools," she said thoughtfully. "Are all humans like this?" "Not exactly," Daniel replied, relaxing slightly. "I'm an explorer. My tools help me survive in unfamiliar places." Lyra nodded, her expression thoughtful. "You may be useful, human. But first, we must decide if you are friend or foe." Before Daniel could respond, a loud roar echoed through the forest. The ground trembled, and birds scattered from the trees. The Zephyrians immediately tensed, their graceful forms shifting into defensive stances. Lyra turned to her people and spoke in their native language, her tone sharp and commanding. "What was that?" Daniel asked, gripping his blade instinctively. Lyra's glowing eyes met his. "A beast. It comes closer. If you truly come in peace, human, you will help us." Daniel hesitated. He had just crash-landed on this planet and didn't know the dangers it held. But the fear in the Zephyrians' eyes told him this was no ordinary threat. If he refused, he might lose their trust and their help. "All right," Daniel said firmly, unsheathing his energy blade. "I'll help. Just tell me what to do." Lyra's lips curled into a small smile, the first sign of trust she had shown. "Stay close, human, and prepare yourself. This beast shows no mercy." The group moved quickly, following Lyra through the forest. The roars grew louder, and the trees seemed to shiver with each step the beast took. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his focus. Whatever this beast was, he would face it head-on. As they approached a clearing, Daniel caught his first glimpse of the creature. It was massive, with razor-sharp claws and glowing red eyes that pierced the darkness. Its scales shimmered like metal, and its tail thrashed violently, breaking trees with ease. The Zephyrians froze, their glowing eyes wide with terror. Lyra turned to Daniel, her voice steady but urgent. "Now, human, show us if your tools are truly as powerful as you say." Daniel gripped his energy blade tightly, its soft hum filling the tense air. "Let's find out," he said, stepping forward to face the monstrous beast. Misunderstandings and curiosity. The beast's retreat left a trail of crushed trees and broken ground, but Daniel could still feel the weight of its glowing red eyes. The Zephyrians whispered among themselves, their shimmering forms casting eerie reflections against the glowing trees. For a moment, the forest fell into an uneasy silence. Lyra stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Daniel's energy blade, which still hummed softly in his grip. "You drove the beast away," she said, her voice calm but laced with suspicion. "No one here has ever stood against it and lived. Yet you, a human." She trailed off, her eyes narrowing. Daniel deactivated the blade, letting the air fall silent once again. I didn't kill it, he admitted. It just backed off. Lyra studied him, her glowing patterns pulsing faintly in the dim light. She pointed at the blade on his belt again, the same curious look from earlier returning. This tool of yours, why does it obey you? Is it alive? Daniel blinked, caught off guard. Alive? No, it's just technology. A tool powered by energy. Her brow furrowed, as if trying to piece together the concept. Technology. Energy. She repeated, testing the unfamiliar words on her tongue. To us, it appears as magic. Is this what humans are? Beings who control invisible forces. The murmurs among the Zephyrians grew louder, and Daniel realized they weren't just curious. They were fearful. He could see it in their glowing eyes, the way they shifted nervously. To them, he wasn't just an explorer. He was an enigma, perhaps even a threat. Lyra raised her hand, silencing her people. She stepped closer to Daniel, her movements deliberate. We have met travelers before, she said softly, but none like you. They came in peace, speaking of trade and knowledge. Yet you arrive from the sky, wielding powers we do not understand, and face beasts we cannot defeat. How do we know you mean no harm? Daniel hesitated. He could feel the weight of their stares, the unspoken fear hanging in the air. I'm not here to hurt anyone, he said carefully. I crash-landed here by accident. I'm just trying to survive, like all of you. Lyra tilted her head, as if weighing his words. Then, unexpectedly, her lips curled into a small, amused smile. Survive, by standing alone against the great predator of our land. If that is survival, human, then you are either very brave or very foolish. Before Daniel could respond, a young Zephyrian stepped forward, his eyes burning with anger. Leader Lyra, he said, his voice sharp, this outsider brings danger to us. The beast was not hunting us, it was drawn to him. His strange tools, his energy, it disturbs the balance. Lyra turned to the young alien, her expression firm. Enough, Talek. We do not judge without understanding. But understanding is dangerous. Talek argued, his glowing patterns flaring brightly. What if he brings more beasts? Or worse, what if he calls others like him? The tension in the group was palpable. Daniel clenched his fists, resisting the urge to defend himself. He needed their trust, but every word seemed to push them further away. Then, inspiration struck. Let me show you, Daniel said suddenly, his voice steady. If you think I'm a danger, let me prove otherwise. Let me help. Lyra's gaze flickered with intrigue. Help? How? Daniel gestured toward the retreating trail of destruction left by the beast. That thing didn't attack by chance. Something scared it or controlled it. Let me investigate. If I can figure out why it came here, maybe I can stop it from returning. The Zephyrians exchanged uncertain glances, their glowing forms shifting like restless shadows. Talek scoffed. And why should we trust you? What if you're the one behind it all? Daniel met his glare evenly. If I were behind it, I wouldn't be standing here offering to help, would I? Lyra raised her hand again, silencing the group. Her eyes locked on Daniel, searching for something in his expression. Finally, she nodded. Very well, human. You will investigate. But Talek will accompany you, and you will carry no weapons unless I permit it. Daniel hesitated, glancing at his energy blade. Fine, he said, unstrapping it and handing it to Lyra. But if we run into another one of those things, don't expect me to fight it with my bare hands. Lyra's smile returned, faint but genuine. We shall see, human. Perhaps your actions will speak louder than your strange tools. As the group began to move, Talek fell into step beside Daniel, his glare unrelenting. Don't think for a moment I'll let my guard down around you, he warned. Daniel sighed, his shoulders tense but his resolve firm. Don't worry, he muttered under his breath. I wouldn't trust me either. The trail ahead was dark and foreboding, and the whispers of the Zephyrians faded into the rustling of leaves. Daniel could feel the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He was an outsider in a world that didn't trust him, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that he was exactly where he was meant to be. As they moved deeper into the forest, the glowing patterns on the trees seemed to pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Whatever awaited them, Daniel knew one thing for certain. His journey on this strange planet was far from over. The beast attack. The forest trembled, the air filled with the distant roars of the beast. Daniel, Lyra, and the group of Zephyrians stood at the edge of the village, where strange bioluminescent plants cast an eerie glow across the landscape. Every sound felt sharper, every shadow alive with danger. But it wasn't just the beast that worried Daniel, it was the Zephyrians themselves. They were armed with nothing more than rudimentary tools made of crystal and bone. Against something so massive, they were defenseless. Daniel tightened his grip on the energy blade Lyra had reluctantly returned to him. "If that thing gets past us," he said, glancing at Lyra, "this village won't stand a chance." Lyra's glowing patterns dimmed slightly, a sign of her unease. "We have faced many beasts, human, but none like this. It is not just its size. It carries a mark of darkness. Something unnatural guides it." Daniel frowned. "A mark of darkness." Lyra nodded. "We call it the Veil. It corrupts creatures, bending them to its will. We have fought its influence for generations, but its reach grows stronger." Before Daniel could press further, the ground shook violently, and the beast emerged from the tree line. It was even more terrifying up close. Standing nearly 20 feet tall, its body was covered in shimmering black scales that seemed to absorb the light around it. Its glowing red eyes burned with a feral intensity, and deep scars ran across its hide, as if it had been in countless battles. But the most chilling detail was a series of jagged symbols carved into its chest, symbols that pulsed with a sinister energy. "The Veil," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling. The beast roared, its cry splitting the night like thunder. The Zephyrians froze in fear, their glowing forms dimming as they huddled together. Daniel felt his instincts kick in. He couldn't wait for them to act. They needed leadership now. "Spread out," he shouted, his voice cutting through their fear. "Draw its attention away from the village. Lyra, can you distract it with your people?" Lyra hesitated but nodded, quickly barking commands in her melodic language. The Zephyrians moved with surprising agility, darting into the shadows of the forest. The beast's gaze followed them for a moment, but its attention snapped back to Daniel, as if sensing the unfamiliar energy of his blade. "Looks like it's me you're interested in," Daniel muttered, activating the blade with a sharp hum. The beast let out another roar and charge. Daniel barely had time to dodge as the creature's massive claws slashed through the ground, sending debris flying. He rolled to his feet, his heart pounding. The beast was faster than he'd expected, too fast for something so large. He swung the energy blade, the weapon cutting through the air with a crackling sound. The beast reared back, the blade grazing its armored hide. Sparks flew, but the creature barely flinched. Its scales were tougher than anything Daniel had encountered before. "Great," he muttered under his breath. "This just keeps getting better." From the corner of his eye, Daniel saw Lyra and a group of Zephyrians using glowing crystals to create distractions. Bright bursts of light flared in the forest, drawing the beast's attention momentarily. It turned its head, roaring in frustration, giving Daniel a chance to strike. He lunged forward, aiming for the strange symbols on the beast's chest. The blade struck true, and the creature let out a deafening howl. For a moment, its movements faltered, as if the symbols were a weak point. But then, to Daniel's horror, the beast's scars began to glow brighter, and its strength returned. "What the hell?" Daniel exclaimed, stumbling back as the creature swiped at him again. It wasn't just strong, it was adapting. Lyra appeared at his side, her expression grim. "The veil protects it," she said. "Your weapon alone will not defeat it." "Then what will?" Daniel demanded, panting as he dodged another attack. Lyra hesitated, There is an ancient ritual, one that can break the veil's hold. But it requires time, and the beast will not wait. Daniel glanced back at the village. The Zephyrians were watching from the safety of their glowing huts, their fear palpable. He had to buy them time, no matter the cost. "Do the ritual," he said firmly. "I'll keep it busy." Lyra's glowing patterns brightened in surprise. "You cannot face it alone." "I don't have a choice," Daniel said, gripping the blade tighter. "Just tell me you can break that thing's connection to the veil." Lyra nodded, her expression softening with a mixture of respect and worry. "I will try, but you must hold on." As Lyra and the other Zephyrians began chanting in their melodic language, the beast roared again and charged at Daniel. He stood his ground, the energy blade humming with determination. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving himself to these people, about standing against the darkness that threatened them all. The battle raged on, each swing of the blade, and every dodge taking a toll on Daniel's strength. But he refused to back down. In the distance, the Zephyrians' chants grew louder, their voices rising like a song of hope. And then, just as Daniel felt his strength fading, a brilliant light erupted from the village. The symbols on the beast's chest flickered and dimmed, and for the first time, the creature hesitated. Daniel's heart raced. "Now's my chance," he muttered, gripping the blade with both hands and charging at the beast. The hidden threat. The air was thick with tension as the village slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The beast had fled, but the scars it left, both physical and emotional, were etched deeply into the Zephyrians. Daniel sat near the village's central fire pit, his energy blade resting across his knees. The glow from the flames reflected off the shimmering patterns on Lyra's skin as she approached. "You fought bravely," Lyra said, sitting beside him. "But bravery alone will not save us from what's coming." Daniel looked up at her, frowning. "What's coming?" That beast seemed bad enough. Lyra's glowing patterns dimmed, a sign of deep unease. The beast was only a pawn. "It is controlled by the veil, a dark force that has haunted my people for generations. But its power grows stronger, and I fear the one behind it will soon reveal themselves." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "The one behind it? Are you saying this veil has a leader?" Lyra nodded solemnly. "We call it the Shadow Warden, a being of immense power. Long ago, it was sealed away using ancient technology, hidden deep within the caves of Eternus. But now, the seals are breaking." Daniel leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. This technology, could it be connected to human advancements? "Maybe I can help figure it out." Lyra's eyes glimmered with a mix of hope and skepticism. "Perhaps. But the journey to the caves is perilous. Many have gone, few have returned. I didn't survive that crash and fight a giant monster just to sit here," Daniel said with a determined grin. "If this Shadow Warden is the real threat, then we need to stop it. Lead the way." As dawn broke, Daniel and Lyra set out with a small group of Zephyrian scouts. The forest grew denser with every step, the glowing trees casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. The air grew colder, and the hum of distant energy filled Daniel's ears, like a low-frequency vibration he couldn't shake. "This place feels alive," Daniel muttered, gripping his blade tightly. "It is," Lyra said softly. "The forest itself is part of the veil's domain. It watches us." Daniel glanced around uneasily. "Watches us? You're not making me feel better, Lyra." Suddenly, one of the scouts let out a sharp cry, pointing ahead. A massive stone arch loomed in the distance, covered in glowing alien symbols. The entrance to the caves of Eternus. Lyra stopped, her glowing patterns flickering nervously. "We're here," she said, "but we must tread carefully. The Shadow Warden's influence is strongest inside." Daniel approached the arch, running his hand along the strange symbols etched into the stone. They pulsed faintly under his touch, sending a chill up his spine. "These symbols," he said, "they look like some kind of control interface. Maybe I can." Before he could finish, the ground beneath them rumbled. The symbols on the arch flared to life, and a deep, resonant voice echoed from within the cave. "Who dares disturb my slumber?" The voice was cold and hollow, filled with malice. The Zephyrians recoiled in fear, their glowing forms dimming as they huddled together. Even Lyra looked shaken. Daniel, however, stepped forward, his jaw tight. "I don't care who or what you are," he said, his voice steady. "If you're behind the veil, then we've got a problem." The voice chuckled darkly, the sound reverberating through the forest. "A human," it said mockingly. "How quaint. You think you can challenge me with your primitive tools." Daniel activated his blade, the hum filling the air. "I've faced worse than a disembodied voice." The ground shook again, and a shadowy figure began to materialize at the entrance of the cave. Its form was indistinct, shifting like smoke, but its glowing red eyes burned with unmistakable hatred. Lyra grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him back. "We can't fight it. Not here," she hissed. "We need the artifact inside the cave. It's the only thing that can weaken the Shadow Warden." Daniel nodded, his heart pounding. "Then we go in. Now." The group darted past the shadowy figure as it roared, its form stretching and twisting to block their path. Daniel swung his blade, the energy slicing through the darkness, giving them just enough time to slip into the cave. Inside, the air was damp and cold. Strange, glowing crystals lined the walls, casting an eerie blue light. The hum of energy grew louder, almost deafening. Daniel could feel it vibrating through his entire body. Lyra led them deeper into the cave, her glowing patterns brightening as she navigated the twisting passages. "The artifact is ahead," she said, her voice tense. "But the Veil's guardians will try to stop us." "Guardians?" Daniel asked, but before she could answer, the ground shook violently. From the walls emerged twisted, shadowy creatures, their forms flickering like unstable holograms. Their glowing red eyes locked onto the group. Lyra drew a crystal blade, its edge shimmering with light. "We fight," she said simply. "Stay close, human." Daniel activated his blade again, his grip tightening. Wasn't planning on going anywhere. As the shadow creatures closed in, Daniel and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face whatever the Veil threw at them. The path to the artifact, and their only hope, lay ahead, shrouded in darkness. Journey into the unknown. The air inside the caves of Eternus was electric, buzzing with an energy that made Daniel's skin crawl. The deeper they ventured, the more alien the surroundings became. Walls once lined with glowing crystals now shimmered with pulsating veins of light, as though the cave itself was alive. Every sound, every footstep, every breath echoed endlessly, amplifying the tension in the group. Lyra led the way, her glowing patterns pulsing in sync with the cave's strange energy. "The artifact is close," she said, her voice steady despite the unease in her eyes. "But the Veil knows we are here." Daniel scanned the path ahead, his energy blade ready in his hand. "How do you know this artifact will even work? What if it's just old junk?" Lyra stopped, turning to face him. "It's not junk," she said firmly. "The artifact was left behind by the ancients, a race far older than my people, and perhaps even yours. They sealed the Shadow Warden once before. If there's any hope of defeating it again, it lies with their technology." Daniel nodded but couldn't shake his doubts. The cave's oppressive energy seemed to press harder with every step, like it was trying to drive them back. The Zephyrian scouts, normally graceful and confident, were tense, their glowing forms flickering like dying flames. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them shifted. Daniel stumbled, catching himself against the wall. The glowing veins on the walls pulsed violently, and a low, guttural growl echoed through the chamber. Lyra's eyes widened. "The Guardians are coming." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, shadowy forms began to emerge from the walls. They were unlike anything he had seen before, twisted, writhing shapes that flickered like unstable projections. Their red eyes glowed with malice, and their movements were jerky, as if they were half-formed. "Back to back," Lyra shouted, drawing her crystal blade. Daniel activated his energy blade, the familiar hum grounding him as the first guardian lunged. He swung, the blade slicing through the shadowy creature with ease. But instead of falling, the guardian dissolved into smoke, only to reform moments later. "They can't be killed," one of the scouts cried, their voice trembling with fear. "They can be disrupted," Lyra corrected, slashing at another guardian. "But only the artifact can destroy them for good." Daniel gritted his teeth. "Great. Where is this miracle artifact?" Then, Lyra pointed to a large door at the end of the chamber. It was made of a strange, iridescent material, covered in alien symbols that glowed faintly. "There, but it's locked." "Of course it is," Daniel muttered, fending off another guardian. "Why wouldn't it be?" Lyra darted toward the door, her movements swift and precise. She placed her hands on the glowing symbols, and the patterns on her skin began to shift, aligning with the door. The air around her crackled with energy. "Hurry!" Daniel shouted, slashing at two more guardians as they advanced. The creatures were relentless, their attacks coming faster and closer. He could feel his energy blade growing hotter in his hand, its power waning under the strain. The door let out a deep, resonant hum and began to slide open, revealing a chamber bathed in golden light. At its center was a pedestal, atop which rested the artifact, a spherical object that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. Its surface was smooth, yet its glow revealed intricate patterns that shifted like living circuits. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered, stepping toward it. Daniel, still fending off the guardians, shouted, "Not the time for admiration. Grab it and let's go." Lyra hesitated only a moment before reaching out. As her fingers brushed the artifact, a surge of energy rippled through the chamber, forcing everyone to the ground. The guardians let out a collective shriek and dissolved into smoke, their forms scattering like ash in the wind. Daniel pushed himself up, his vision blurred from the blast. What just happened? Lyra stood holding the artifact, her patterns glowing brighter than ever before. Her expression was a mixture of awe and fear. "The artifact. It's awake." Daniel groaned as he got to his feet. "Great. Does it come with instructions, or do we just hope for the best?" Lyra turned to him, her voice steady but urgent. "The artifact is connected to the veil. If I can synchronize with it, I can weaken the Shadow Warden's hold on this place. But it will take time." "Time we don't have," Daniel said, gesturing to the pulsating walls around them. The cave was reacting to the artifact's activation, and it wasn't happy. Cracks formed in the ground, and strange tendrils of dark energy began to seep through. Lyra's grip on the artifact tightened. "We must return to the surface. The artifact's full power can only be unleashed in the open, under the sky." "Perfect," Daniel said with a sarcastic edge. "Nothing like running for your life to spice up the day." The group began their retreat, the artifact's glow lighting their path. But as they moved, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was following them. Something far worse than the guardians they had just faced. The Shadow Warden was waking, and it wasn't going to let them leave without a fight.